Hello everybody, I just want to do a fairly quick tutorial to show how you can set Duplicati to initiate a shutdown script on a host machine. So here we're going to be running Duplicati inside of a Docker container, which means it shouldn't be able to shut down the host unless you start messing around with quite scary privileges and letting it have access to all the host system, which we don't want to do. So I've been looking at a workaround for this, putting together a few ideas from people that I've seen on the internet, although I'm not sure if anyone's documented how this can be done. So this guide is to show other people and also help me remember, if I come to redo this, how I did it the first time, because it has taken me a couple of days to get this working and it seems to be working really well now. So the first thing is you need to make sure that you've got your Docker container installed, and I'm using the Docker container from linuxserver.io. There's plenty of videos on the internet to show you how to set that one up. I'm not going to get into it just now, but the Docker script that I did use, I can show you here. So this is their basic one taken off of Docker Hub. I've changed the PGID to 100, which is my user ID. My users group, and the PUID is 1000 for my machine. If you're not sure of what yours is, then all you have to do is type ID into your terminal and it says UID for me is 1000, GID is 100, and that means that anything that gets written by Duplicati is going to be given those privileges. And also it means that Duplicati is not running as root or putting things in as root onto my main system. How could it do that if it's in a terminal? Well, the container has some exposed folders, which I'll show you here. So it has this path to app data, so you would change that address to where you want your Docker config file to stay, and that way if you blow away your container and then you put a new one in, all your settings are still there. So we want that config file. Inside the container it will be just /config. Backups is similar source. I've actually added an extra one, which you'll see when we get into the SSH session, which I've just called monitored or monitoring. I can't remember from right this second, but monitoring. And that's the folder that's going to be our kind of magic folder when we get this working. So we add an extra one into there, and that's the only change that I have made to the stock image. So in our test machines, I'm just SSH'd into the machine now. My exposed folders are here if we have a look. Okay, so I have my backups folder, config folder, source folder, anything that Duplicati wants, and that's covered in other videos. And then here's this monitored folder that I have made. Okay, and in there we can see that it's completely empty. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to have a piece of software called Incron, and it's going to be monitoring this folder, and if a file is made within that folder, it will instantly shut the machine down. So we don't really want that folder having anything else in it. We don't want to accidentally write to it. We don't want it having backups or anything, or accidentally click the wrong folder, because all that will happen is as soon as you put a new file in there, the machine will shut down. So that's what we're aiming for. So the only thing that's going to write into there are blank files with just the date and time that the backup was made, and you can delete those no problem without it shutting down the system. It's only when a new one is put in there that the system will shut down. And because these files are blank, they have barely any size. Okay, so we can have lots and lots of them in there. We can have a history of when we did backups, and I'll show you how we do that in the script that we're going to write. So it's all fairly straightforward stuff, hopefully, and easy to follow along with. So the first step is going to be to install Incron. So I've got a Debian based system here, so sudo apt install and then Incron. I've already installed this, as this isn't the first time I've attempted to make this tutorial, so it's already there. On your system obviously it will install. If we then try to run Incron or edit the Incron table, we won't be allowed to. Okay, not even if we're running as root. And the reason for that is we have to first tell Incron which users, including root, are allowed to actually edit the Incron table. So in order to do that, we're going to use an editor. I'm going to use Nano, and this has to be done with root privileges. So sudo nano /etc /incron, and the one we want is incron allow. And if we hit that, we can see that yours would be blank. I've added the word root and then I've hit enter, so I've got an extra line at the bottom here. And you can add any users you want in there, but we really want to restrict this to super users only. So we can now exit there, Control and X. And then if it asks you to save, just press Y. And now we should be able to sudo, and then in order to edit the table, we type incron tab, so incron table space -e, and that will load your editor. And we can see here I've already started to fill this in. So what have we got? I've put the folder path, the full path to the folder that I'm going to be monitoring. So mine is in my home folder, Duplicati, and then this monitored folder. So that's the one that I have given my container access to. I've then typed this in create, and there's lots of different things you can do with incron. So we could have in_monitor, where if a file is changed or a folder is changed at all, it will initiate a command. I don't want that, because when trying to do this with Duplicati, it instantly shuts down before the backup takes place. It must modify the file in some way before the backup takes place. So we use increate because we're going to make an empty file in there, and then what we're going to trigger is sbin/shutdown hnow. Now that's unique for this Debian install. Other derivatives, other distros, it might be a slightly different path for you. So that, hit enter, exit the editor, save it, yes, enter, and we're kind of ready. So that's now monitoring that folder. If I put something into that folder, it will shut down the system. So all we have to do now is get our Duplicati container to write into that folder once a backup is finished, and it should trigger the shutdown. So in order to do that, I'm going to need to write a little script, and I need to put it somewhere that Duplicati will be able to get to it. So let's just have a quick look at what the script is going to be. So it's this here. So we've got a #bang/bin/sh for our script, touch, which means it's going to create a file, and then we have double quotation mark, and then the path here to the folder that we are monitoring. Then we have this extra stuff here. Now this looks like it's on 2 lines, but it's actually all on 1 line. It's just wrapped the line round in my text editor. So if I copy this, and if I switch over to the terminal, and we're just going to create our script. So I've gone into my config folder here. It doesn't matter what folder it is, but it has to be a folder that can be accessed by your container. So it can be the backup one, it could be the source one. I'd recommend it not be in the monitor one. It can be, but you don't want to accidentally delete the script when you're deleting some of the other files. So I'm just going to make a shell script. We're just going to call it nano completed.sh. Can be anything you like. And then you can see here, as I copy this in, it says touch, so that's create the file. And then this is going to be the directory. It's the absolute path, so it has to start with the root directory. I've tried this other ways and it didn't work. So the absolute path there, and then home army for me into my monitored folder. And it's going to create a file that's called today's date. So it's going to call the command date. It's going to figure out what the date is, and then from that command, it's going to put the year, the month, the day, then a double space, then the hours, minutes, and seconds. And the reason I've done that is so that I don't have the same file again and again. And I can also see, just by looking at the folder, when the last backup was completed. So I can very quickly see that. And I can delete these whenever I want to. Don't have to keep them. And it's going to append the end of that file name with completed. Okay, it doesn't have to do that. I chose that. But this could be anything you want. It could just be a normal file name, but I thought it was quite nice that I'd have lots of individual copies there. And there's nothing going into these files. It's just an empty file with a file name. And just by being there and being created, that's what's going to trigger the shutdown process. So if I come out of this, I could run this now just by running sh and then the completed shell script, and that will shut down this server. Okay, I can show you that working. So here we have the server, which is live, and now if I go to my terminal, if I run that script, and I'm just going to take this off the screen and run it, I'm just going to hit enter, and you should be able to see that Duplicati should stop working. And there we go. So it says there the connection to the server is lost, and that's because the machine is actually shut down. So I'm just going to power that machine back on, and I'll resume the recording. So I've logged back into the machine, got the tests back up working again. So if we go back over to the terminal now, so you can see that I'm now back into my config folder, which is my shared folder that's going to be for my container. Now, there is something that we are going to have to change here now. So we've got the script working, we know the script works and it's fine, but the script is incorrect if it's going to be run from inside our container. So we go back in and edit it. And now completed.sh. Okay, go back into there. So this path is now going to be incorrect because that's the path when we're on the host machine. We're not going to be on the host machine. We're going to be in the container, and I save mine in the config folder, and then not config folder, sorry, I save mine in the monitored folder, save the script in the config folder. So the output goes into the monitored folder, so it's just mounted on my root directory as monitored. Okay, so that's much simpler. So we can exit there, come out of that, and we should be ready to go. So if we now switch over to our server, so there we go. So here is my backup, and we can see that it was last run today. So let's go into the settings here, edit the configuration, and if I go all the way across to the options, if I scroll down, you'll see that I have this run script after. So what I did there was I just clicked on the drop down box, scrolled all the way down really far. It's run script after, run script on exit. So as soon as the backup's done, it's going to run this script. So we're going to go to that, we're going to type in where the script is saved, and for me it's in the config folder. So /config/completed.sh, and then we're going to save that. And then fingers crossed, when we run this now, it should back up really quickly and then shut down our machines. Let's see if that works. So it's starting the backup, and that is it. Connection to the server's been lost because the server's now off. So I can fire up my server again, and I'll come back when I've done that, and we'll look at if there's been a new file added. So I've rebooted, and we can see that it has just been run, so 2034, and it finished, shut itself down. So if we switch over now to our terminal, and we go to cd home. Okay, so it's the monitored folder, and if we list what's in there, we can see now there is an extra one here. Okay, that was run at 2034.38, and there's nothing really in there, and it's just ls. And we can see that it has no bytes, so it's just a name, it's just an allocated part of the hard drive, but there's nothing in it. So we can go through and we can delete those, no problem, and it won't shut down the machine. It's only as the new files are made that it will shut down our server. So what I have now is I have a cron job that wakes up the server. It's a cron job on another machine. It wakes up my server. I give it about 10 minutes to wake up fully, and then I trigger the backup. So I have a backup set within Duplicati that's scheduled, and then I know that as soon as that backup finishes, it's going to shut down the machine nice and cleanly, and then the following week it's going to start up again and keep going. So I'm not having to run my server 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for those backups. So just once a week for me. I hope this helps other people. Partly this was put I did this video so that I could remember myself how I got it all working, because it has taken me quite a while to get this working. So I know I'll be using this again on other machines. I hope other people find it as useful as I do. Okay, thank you.